Hey, what's happening, y'all? It's me coming back at you again with another vid. I'm gonna go ahead and try this. This is a first time for everything. I'm gonna do a A&A response, which is an answer within an answer, and response videos. The reason why I'm doing this is because if I get a 3 to 5 paragraph responses on video posts, instead of just going ahead and address it in the post itself, I'd rather do a video response because I believe this would be the much easier way of responding to a very, very long, detailed and essay written responses and video posts. Because sometimes it does take it is a bit of a drag to read through the whole damn thing. But let me go ahead and start with the first commenter. The first commenter is Fat Apples. He was commenting on my video, my thoughts on the proposed offer sent to Deontay Wilder from Anthony Joshua. He said here, quote, "So he, as a Deontay Wilder, has one belt. He's a non-pay-per-view star, which is true. Far less a resume, and he has made no more than $2 million, but yet he's turning down 7 times that amount. I'm sorry, but he did price himself out for the White, Parker, Briggs, and Martin fights, and those are the facts. Butterkiss Schaefer is one of the Butterkissed, okay, is one of Wilder's 10 promotional managers that we don't see here of any. Well, I don't know what the hell that means. Fat Apples gets along with Heyman, Diaz, DeBella, Finkel, Breland, and Deontay's brother, Deontay's agent, Deontay himself, and the T lady, and with the head of the LDBC having a 1% share. Ah, man, you certainly have a big beef with the LDBC. And first things first, Fat Apples, I responded to this. Let me go ahead and read my response to you. Okay, then I'll go into further details. First, Wilder didn't price himself out against Parker, which is true. Please provide some evidence that he did price himself out, because I haven't seen it. As I recalled, Parker backed out of the negotiations with Wilder and elected to fight his mandatory challenger Hughie Fury instead, a much lesser risk than Wilder, in order to set himself up with a matchup with AJ, which is true. Second of all, Briggs was the one who priced himself out against Wilder. He asked for $1 million payday, although he was getting a $500,000 payday, a $500,000 payday if he accepted the fight. You know what? I made a mistake there. That's a little error. He actually asked for $2 million, not $1 million, which is Shannon Briggs. Now, Briggs was fighting nothing but tomato cans and casinos since his comeback at that time, which is true. Thirdly, Wilder never negotiated with Martin. Those are the actual facts. Lastly, you are right about the initial offer about Dillian Whyte. Yes, Deontay did price himself out against Dillian Whyte. I agree with that. But nonetheless, Hearn was willing to make a compromising purse offer for Wilder to fight Whyte, but he never executed the contract. Yeah, which is true. Now, Richard Schaefer never promoted Deontay Wilder. Now, I believe he helped advise him along with Heyman. That's about it. He never promoted him. Well, you know what? Let me take that back. Deontay Wilder was with Golden Boy, so and Richard Schaefer was one of Golden Boy's. I think he was the CEO of Golden Boy at the time. So I made him a little error there. He did promote him. Well, Oscar De La Hoya technically promoted him. Richard Schaefer helped promote him, so that's about it. He was never He never was a Richard Schaefer fighter. So, Fat Apple's response to me and says here, shrew reply, Dan. I would also ask for evidence if I'm questioning myself in these matters. Yeah, you didn't. Firstly, the reason Parker backed out of the negotiations, see, now you're backtracking, Fat Apples, was because Team Wilder offered a very small amount and he was a belt holder, so it was believed that they may have came close between 50-50, but according to sources, both, to be honest, priced each other out, thinking they were more worthy of a champion. Well, Fat Apples, there's a problem with that response in that little response there, because you're kind of contradicting yourself. First, you said that Wilder's team offered a very small amount, and then you come out in the same response that they were close to a 50-50 split. And you saying they priced themselves out. That doesn't make any sense, okay? Now, again, to my response to you, which you kind of backtracked from your initial response, saying that Wilder priced himself out against Parker. That didn't happen. It was Parker who backed out of the negotiations because he felt that Wilder was a much dangerous risk. So they thought that they would get the Joshua fight, which would be more lucrative, which it was. No, you can't knock him for that, right? The only way to get the Joshua's fight, they will have to get through the mandatory, their mandatory, which is Hughie Fury, right? So Hughie Fury, they elected to fight him instead. They fought him in the UK, which, you know, they have very, 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 very difficult time selling tickets at the gate. And they couldn't even get a damn broadcaster to broadcast a fight. So they had to broadcast it on YouTube, pay-per-view, and they only, did about 7,000 buys, 8,000 buys. It was just a very poor outing and poorly promoted event. Okay, and then when they got through Huey Fury, which was a very controversial decision, and I'll admit that I thought Parker won the fight, but I thought it was much closer than what the judge had seen it. It was definitely not one of his best performances. And so once he got through that fight, then they set themselves up for a unification bout with Joshua, which was far more lucrative than fighting Deontay Wilder. Okay, now. You went on to say that, and this was also the case for Charles Martin when he held the IBF title. It is true that before Joshua had laid his eyes on that belt, he was still progressing. Joshua never laid eyes on the IBF belt. He never did. Eddie Hearn was positioning Joshua to fight for the EBU title on the European level, okay? That's what he was doing initially. They never had Charles Martin in their sights. Charles Martin was a guy, after he beat GLAZKOV by, you know, pretty much a bizarre TKO fashion, which Charles Martin had left the fight unscathed, or undented as you want to call it. He was immediately going out there to try to sell the IBF belt to the highest bidder. First, he tried to sell it to Joseph Parker. Joseph Parker's team couldn't offer they couldn't offer enough money for him to be enticed to go to New Zealand and fight for the fight. So they decided to go ahead and approach Hearn and Joshua instead. All right. Now Hearn, I should say, actually went to Joshua's management team and asked him, "Are you guys sure you can beat Charles Martin? Do you want this fight? Yes or no?" And Hearn himself said that I would suggest we go ahead and do the European level fight. Let's do that first. But it was Joshua's team or his management who insisted that they go ahead with the Charles Martin fight instead, because they felt that would be a much easier fight to win. And they knew that was a world level fight. So yeah, you got it wrong. Anthony Joshua did not lay eyes on that IBF title. He was positioning to go on to fight on the European level. All right. Now, Team Wilder, you said also here, and let's continue what you said here. Team Wilder decided to go after Charles Martin in the IBF, and they, although it was kept quiet, it is believed an offer from Team Wilder to Martin was made and was turned down. Apparently, because of a poor amount offered to Martin, who then greedily decided to sell his belt for an estimate $5 million in match room. I might be wrong, but I also heard Blood Boxing saying that Wilder was to fight Martin for the title. This is also information on this if you type in on Google. Well, see, there you go again, Fat Apples. You're spreading false information. That never happened. Okay, Wilder's team never negotiated with Charles Martin. That never took place, and Charles Martin's promoter even can attest to that. And his name is Jay Magalos. Okay, I think I pronounced his name right. Let me see if I got his name properly. No, it's actually Leon Magalis. There you go, Leon Magalis. This is what he had to say. Quote: "We would have taken the Wilder fight if it wasn't for Deontay's commitments with the WBC with Alexander Povetkin." Okay, that was their number one option before they decided to go sell their belt elsewhere. Okay. But the fact is, they never had a chance to talk to Deontay or his team because of these commitments, and that's why they decided that they were not going to wait until he resolved the Alexander Povetkin situation or the fight if it had gone through. So they were immediately trying to sell the belt off, go to the highest bidder as quick as possible. They weren't going to wait for Wilder. I mean, but all fairness, though, I would say, though, if I was Wilder and his management team, I would have approached Martin. I would have talked to him and said, look, or his team or his promoter, and said, look, let us wait till we handle the Povetkin situation. Let us handle him. Let us get through our mandatory, and then we'll come to the table and we'll talk about a unification bout. All right. But the fact is that they never had negotiated. They never spoke on a split, so you're making up stuff again, Fat Apples. They never offered Martin to fight. That never happened. In fact, I will post a link to the articles below so you can take a look at it. All right, and what else did you say again? Yes, so Martin never turned down a fight with Deontay Wilder. It's just that they never had approached him for a fight. So you are definitely wrong about this. So wherever you got your information from, that's a lot of hearsay, okay? Plain and simple. Is how do you know, this is where I'm bizarre with this little comment here. How do you know that it was kept quiet? There was nothing kept quiet about anything. They never approached Charles Martin for a fight. It was Charles Martin's team, I have to repeat myself, are the ones who've admitted that they never approached a fight, essentially. They just said, look, we would have taken that fight. That would have been our first option, but you know, again, Deontay Wilder was tied up with commitments with the WBC with the Povetkin fight. And they were not going to give him an exemption because the WBC wanted that mandatory to be due. There you go. Now, as to Shannon Briggs, I'm not sure where you heard, or you replying to me, Fat Apples. Now, as to Shannon Briggs, this is what you said. As to Shannon Briggs, I'm not sure where you heard or what source gave you the information of Briggs pricing himself out. I highly doubt it, since he came back and was desperate to fight anyone. Again, quoting articles on Google, Briggs stated, "I will fight Wilder for free," which is BS. But Wilder dodged the issue more and said, "I'll fight Shannon Briggs, but he needs practice," which in my thinking also adds up to what I've heard in regards to Wilder not really wanting to fight and price himself out to sources. No, that's totally inaccurate. Again, first of all, Wilder did say that if Shannon Briggs wanted to fight him, he's going to have to pass a steroid test. All right. Now, what you don't know, and I'm going to post a link to the source to the information here, is that Briggs was offered the fight. He was offered 500, 400, 500 grand for the fight. Okay. Now, Briggs comes back and says, "No, I want $2 million. Why does Shannon Briggs want $2 million for that fight? Okay, he was looking to price himself out. He was up in age. He was way past his prime. He's lethargically a lot slower. His stamina was extremely poor. And he knew that taking a Wilder fight was going to be extremely dangerous for him at that age. So he was looking to cash out as high, he was looking to price himself out as much as he could. And his team came back, Wilder's team said, "No, 500. You're lucky you're getting this, or 400, 500 grand. You're lucky you're going to get this amount because you can't get this amount anywhere else where you're going to fight." Well, technically, Briggs could have, basically, if they wanted to fight him. But actually, no. He couldn't. Let me take that back, all right? So the fact is that he was offered a fight by Wilder. He wanted $2 million instead of 500 grand. And Wilder's team said, "Forget it. You're not getting that because you haven't fought anyone on world level since your return. You've been fighting nothing but tomato cans and clubs and casinos, after the beating that he took from Vitaly Klitschko. So why does Briggs deserve $2 million? Yeah, he could talk a game. He could sell a fight, but he doesn't draw enough ratings to where you can justify a $2 million purse payday. That's crazy, So if Shannon was fighting top 10 opponents, then I can understand his justification, but he wasn't doing that. He was fighting nothing but scrubs and cab drivers on his return. So he did price himself out, and that's the reason why he rejected the fight. It's all written. I'm gonna post a link to the article for you to look at it, Fat Apples. Now, you also said here, continuing, "I'm not on some Wilder hate campaign, Dan." Yes, you are. But the man has been protected, which he has to some degree. I will admit that. He has, okay? But all fairness to his management now, they kind of realize that they can't protect him to a certain degree, to where he's going to have to take tougher fights. And I've been arguing for it for a long time now. You are a champion. The standards are set for you at a very high. Standards are set for you at a very high rate. So you need to defend your title as a champion. You need to act it. You need to conduct yourself as a champion, and that's to it. My videos are up, Fat Apples. See, here's the difference between me and you. I can criticize my favorite fighter. You haven't done that with likes of Anthony Joshua. But, I'll get to that at the end of this video. Now, more sources then tell me about Al Heyman trying to buy off Alexander Povetkin so Wilder didn't have to go to Russia and fight him. Really? I don't know about buying off Alexander Povetkin. How could he buy off Alexander Povetkin? I mean, unless you're referring to the negotiation process where Povetkin was made the mandatory. Yeah, they had to negotiate. Heyman was trying to entice Povetkin to come over to the U.S. Of course, Ryan Binsky's money prevented that. It's a negotiation process. You can't buy off a fighter to come to the U.S. I mean, unless you can offer him a very, very big purse. But yeah, I guess that's what you're referring to. I mean, that's well evident. We all knew that was happening in the negotiation process. So, okay. However, Povetkin turned down Heyman, probably due to Ryan Biscuit's money. Yeah, it was due to Ryan Biscuit's money. So Heyman decides the best bet is to buy off VADA. And while it worked for him never to go to Russia, but only for his team Wilder to plane it into the UK and back, test results confirm that Povetkin is at 0.3 milligrams of traces under the legal limit of the 1 microgram rule of the PEDs of meldonium, which are allowed in the system to be considered as affected by the laws in boxing. This is also backed up by a neutral drug testing lab in Switzerland, which Ryan Biscuit took the samples and were confirmed as negative. And if you want the source that told me this, then the source stated that they read the Thomas Hauser report, who I believe wrote the report in regards to Heyman and Povetkin, as well as some interesting information on Floyd Mayweather, which is also true. Well, first things first, Fat Apples. Again, another falsehood. Thomas Hauser did write a very, very scathing and well-detailed, and you could say credible information about Floyd Mayweather's situation with the IVs. Okay, that was never disputed, and Floyd never denied it. All right. Now, as far as the Povetkin thing, I'm not sure if he wrote anything about that, but I will check it out. As far as the so-called neutral drug lab in Switzerland, this drug lab is not even sanctioned by WADA. They're not even sanctioned to conduct drug testing. So Ryan Biscuit takes it to an independent lab, which could be a shell lab that's under USADA. Who knows? All right. But all I know is that they're not even accredited by WADA. And another thing is that you saying that Heyman bought off VADA to protect Wilder, or I mean, what does that mean, Fat Apples? Are you saying that Heyman and Wilder somehow concocted this conspiracy and they somehow fixed Povetkin's positive drug testing results? Are you serious? Are you saying they're the ones who conspired him to fail that drug test? I mean, this is a very, very serious accusation. I'm not sure if anybody can take you seriously, Fat Apples. No disrespect, but this is all a conspiracy nut job talk right here. Seriously. Now, as far as the meldonium 0.3 traces amount under the legal limit is concerned, yeah, that is true. But the fact is that people keep neglecting, the ones who are defending Povetkin here like you are, is that Povetkin and his team admitted that they took the drug, but they're claiming that they took it before it was banned. Okay, fair enough. But the fact is that the drug became banned in January 1st of 2016. The initial rule stated that if you had traces amount left over, any athlete that had traces amount left over, which is below the legal limit, they are allowed to have that legal limit in their system before March 31st of 2016. That was the deadline. Once the deadline exceeds, right, any athlete that has any traces of meldonium in their system will fail the drug test. It doesn't matter if you're below the legal limit or not. You're not allowed to have any traces amount left over after March 31st. That was the initial policy. But what happened? Povetkin and his team somehow got the benefit of the doubt, or the slap on the wrist, when WADA subsequently changed their policy and said, you know what, let's scratch the March 31st policy. Let's go ahead and push it to December 31st of 2016. Which that benefited Povetkin, although the WPC put him on probation and said, look, here's the deal. We're going to still investigate you. And I don't know why people insisted that Povetkin was cleared from the situation. He never was cleared. He was cleared on a provisional basis. If people actually read the resolution on the matter with the WBC and Povetkin, they told him and said, look, here's the deal. We can't figure out that, you took meldonium, right after it was banned. So this is what's going to happen. You're going to be placed on a 1-year probational period, and you're going to have to pay out of pocket to partake in the clean boxing program. Clean boxing drug testing program. All right. If you fail any test within the 12-month probational period, you will be banned indefinitely. All right. And to top it off, we still are investigating you in regards to the meldonium situation. If WADA changes its policy where your case is affected in regards to meldonium within the 1-year period, we will change our ruling against you. That's exactly what they did. And what do you know? A few months later, Povetkin gets popped again. This time with a different drug, Ostarine, leading up to the Stavern fight. A drug that has a similar effects as an anabolic steroid. Povetkin's an innocent man. He gets popped twice within a 6-month period. Wow. So again, Fat Apples, why are you spreading falsehoods about this whole situation? I don't get you. I really don't get it. But it's obvious that you're biased for certain fighters that you don't like. So towards fighters that you do like, but you're biased against certain fighters that you don't like. So it is what it is, man. Let me see. Let me continue this long draft response. You say here. Hold on for a second, guys. Yes, sir?
I just don't want you to start smoking in front of the shop.
Oh, no, I'm not smoking. Yeah, I'm going to wait for that shop to open up because I'm a rep, actually.
I can hear you.
No, I'm an account manager, so.
Oh, you're over here?
Yeah, I'm waiting for them to open up. That's why.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. This is somebody who was talking to me right now. Anyways, all right. So let's see what we got here. Furthermore. All right. So, add to this ridiculous WBC protection of the American heavyweight champion in terms of Stiverne mandatory for a 2-year protection scheme where he never fought anyone. However, he was allowed to remain on the top of the rankings, and to the fact that how did Stiverne and Ariel get a title shot after the belt was vacant by Vitali, where there were many better fighters out there than those two added to that effect, and how on earth did Wilder get a title shot against the winner when the facts are is that he hadn't beaten a top 50 opponent, is basically confirming that the WBC and the PBC are in clear cahoots, especially when you have far better fighters out there such as Hay, Valuev, Pulev, Jagayev, Wach, Thompson, Fury, Povetkin, and so on, who are not even considered but have beaten top fighters. Shows a high level of corruption to keep the belts between Stiverne, Ariel, and Wilder, Heyman stable. Round robin when they hadn't earned the right. So, this is what leads to it. A nice 50% of Wilder's possible $15 million for Wilder's Fat Cats, while the rest are split up between Wilder and his team. Probably equates to, equates to a meal at the Hilton, and all with one close win against a classy but a 45-year-old Luis Ortiz, according to source confirmed Ortiz's age from me. Well, first of all, you don't know Ortiz is 45 years old. And second of all, that 45-year-old was heavily avoided, including he was avoided by the unified heavyweight champion Anthony Joshua, which was on record, which you don't want to admit that did happen. Joshua did blatantly avoid that man. All right. Second of all, Wilder did beat Lahovic, which you could say a top 50 guy. You say top 50, 5-0, and he beat Malik Scott, who was a top 50 guy. Now, I'm not saying that Wilder beating those two wins deserved or warrant Wilder to get a shot at the WBC title. What I'm saying is that the WBC did. As I was saying, I'm not saying that the Malik Scott and the Deontay Wilder fight should warrant a final title eliminator for the WBC title. I'm not saying that, but the WBC did sanction that fight under those standards, and we all know that Scott took a dive in that fight. Yes. So Wilder is in position to fight the winner of Areola versus Stiverne. Now, do I agree that fight should have been sanctioned for the vacant title? Of course not. But that had nothing to do with Heyman. Also, that was Don King, because Don King were the Stiverne Areola fighters. I think Areola was signed with Don King. I could be wrong, but I know Stiverne was a Don King fighter, and you should know that Don King is a guy who is heavily connected with the WBC, has had a long relationship with them for many years. Yes, it was very cozy and corrupt. All right. So I don't think that had nothing to do with Wilder. That had more so to do with Don King. And Heyman, yes, well, all Heyman did was pretty much positioned him to get an eliminator with him and Malik Scott. And they were both Al Heyman fighters. So it is what it is. Now, what else did you say here? Were there other fighters who were worthy of a shot? Absolutely. But Valuev retired. So let's not get it twisted. He retired way before Wilder was coming up. Wach, Jagayev, Pulev, Thompson, Fury, and Povetkin. Yeah, I agree with you on that. They deserved a shot more so, but I don't think Fury was ranked by the WBC at the time. I could be wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and check. But I don't think he was ranked, neither was Thompson. David Hay retired before he made his comeback, I think a year afterwards. All right, so I don't know, Fat Apples. I don't know where you're getting your information from, because this is all conspiracy talk, to be honest with you. All right, Now, again, I'm not saying Deontay Wilder was never protected. Yeah, he was protected to some degree, but you're making it seem like that he's protected for the most part of his career. No, he hasn't. He has been protected for some degree. Now his management realized that, you know what, you can't be taking on these French contenders for any longer. We're not saying French contenders, guys who are like, let's say C plus or B minus type of fighters. You can't do that as a champion forever. You're going to have to fight A plus or B competition. You're going to have to do it. AA plus or B plus or B competition. You're going to have to do that as a heavyweight champion. And that's why I applaud Anthony Joshua for doing what he's doing. All right? More so than Deontay Wilder. But let's not pretend that, yes, Wilder having the protected career to some degree, as many of you and others have criticized him for it. You can't dismiss his career entirely because he is still a heavyweight champion. He does have something to prove, which I am going to give him the benefit of the doubt on. He is still a champion. He is still fighting. And yes, let's assess him. Let's continue to assess his career at this point. So don't completely write him off, what you're doing, which is totally unfair to him. Now, as for the butter kiss, which you mentioned to Richard Safer, advised, promoted, whatever, he is probably on the payroll, so I wouldn't be surprised if he was getting something. Oh, where's your evidence of that, bad apples? And Team Wilder definitely turned down the Wilder fight, which I've admitted. And for the record high payday, and that cannot be disputed. Plus, he asked for $7 million to fight Dillian Whyte. Yeah, I know. I've admitted that. I've commented on that on my video posts, and I've also commented on the Hangouts. So all this information that you put on this long post, Fat Apples, is very, very inaccurate. You've told a lot of falsehoods. I'm not going to go on and call you a liar. I'm not going to go that far, but you definitely made up a lot of falsehoods about the man. That's totally untrue. And you have a tendency of doing that for fighters that you don't like. All right. Because I know that as far as that Luis Ortiz situation, I think it was you. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it was you that initially put out this information, put out this fact that Jay Jimenez is the guy who doesn't get involved in the negotiation process for Luis Ortiz. That's totally untrue. Totally untrue. First of all, Menendez is totally involved, okay, because the managers have to know exactly what type of percentage are they going to get from the fighter out of this purse, and they have to also pretty much negotiate the splits, okay. The promoters do get involved to some degree, but their job is to promote the fights and raise the funds for the fights. That's their job under the Muhammad Ali Act here in the United States. I'm not sure what's going on in the UK, but obviously that's a totally different situation. But the fact is that Menendez is a guy who's involved in negotiations with Ortiz. So I guess you're the one who put out that falsehood. I'm not saying, maybe it was you, because I could have sworn it was you, but correct me if I'm wrong. All right. So with that said, yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and make this long response to you. And I'm going to continue to do these if I get any other comments pertaining to this. And with that said, I am out. Peace. Oh, one more thing before I go. I forgot to mention, I wanted to chime in on the Wilder's team's non-responsive counter offer to Eddie Hearn. I got to say this, man. This is making Deontay Wilder look very bad. Very, very bad. I did peep out that Lou DiBella interview with, I think, a day before. I think it was on the weigh-in of the Vargas and Broner fight. And I gotta say is that Deontay, I mean, seriously, man, you guys gonna have to do something here. I know that Finkel had came out that said that they were going to do a counter offer within 28 to 48 hours, and still we haven't had a response. It's been over a week now. It just looks very bad. All Lou DiBella have to say in that interview, because he was very, very passive and didn't really want to answer the question when he was asked this question about the counteroffer situation. I know he says that that's not how you negotiate. You don't negotiate by emails, blah blah. But that's not in the third. I know that answer sounds bizarre, but I would believe that Lou is probably referring to, look, this is all confidential information. I'm not going to give out details. Well, in that case, nobody's asking you to give out details, Lou. All we're asking is, was a counteroffer sent? Yes or no? That's all you have to answer. And pretty much he just kind of answered no. He didn't want to say it, in that regard. But the fact is, it does look bad. Okay, in all fairness, they are, Hearn did say the deadline has been set. If they don't respond to the deadline, we're going to move on. But then again, he comes back and says at the same time that we're going to meet with them anyway this weekend, at Barclays for the Danny Jacobs event. And Jarrell Big Baby Miller will be co-headlining as well, or co-featured, whatever you want to call it. So, but the fact is that, yes, I know Eddie Hearn has said a lot of contradictory things, but this right here is very, very bad for Deontay Wilder. I mean, particularly him, Shelly Finkel, Lou DiBella and Heyman. I mean, they gotta really, really get in front of the cameras and start speaking. I mean, I know Lou DiBella and Shelly Finkel are doing that to some degree, but they need to be out there first before Eddie Hearn. Seriously, because if they accepted the counteroffer, then they would have called Team Joshua's bluff. But they didn't do that, and now they're looking very bad here. And that's all I gotta say about this. I'm out.